On our early edition at 6, a sleepless night is expected for Koreans set to meet with the long-lost relatives they were separated from more than 60 years ago. Tomorrow, after all the delays and cancellations, cross-border family reunions begin. Prosecuting North Korea for crimes against humanity is a hot subject at the UN and in Washington. South Korean lawmakers also discuss pending bills over the matter. In sports, the euphoria of the Korean ladies clinching gold in the short track relay is still fresh in our minds, but the games are far from over, and Korea's most celebrated athlete takes the ice tonight. Stay with us for these stories and more. It is 4 a.m. in Washington, 1 p.m. in Sochi, and 6 on a Wednesday evening here in Seoul. Welcome to Early Edition at 6. I'm Daniel Che. If you notice, this is usually a two-person job, but my partner Conn-young is not with me today. That's because we start things off by connecting with her live as she joins the Koreans taking part in the family reunion event. The long-overdue reunions of families separated since the Korean War, the first of their kind in 3.5 years, is set to take place at the North's Mount Kumgang Resort from February 20th to the 25th. And on the eve of the historic meeting, the more than 80 South Koreans set to meet their relatives on the other side of the border gathered in South Korea's port city of Sokcho to ready themselves before traveling together to the north. And now let's go live to our anchor, Moon Conn-young, who is there in Sokcho. Conn-young, a big day for those South Koreans who have family in the north.
You're right, Daniel. Right, today is on the eve of this rare reunion of families for separated since the Korean War. It's a very rare one if we know it's the 18th of its kind. And of course, the first in 3 years and 4 months. 82 South Koreans gathered here at this resort hotel in the port city of Sokcho to meet and spend the night here before traveling to Mount Kumgang for this reunion. Now, the heavily fortified border that they'll cross tomorrow is about 50 kilometers from here. And just so you know, we're only, where I'm standing right now, we're only 70 kilometers away from the North Mount Kumgang Resort.
So, Conn-young, how did the 82 South Koreans spend the day today? Will they be able to sleep at all tonight?
Well, let's hope so, because I'm sure every one of them will want to be in their best shape possible to meet their long-lost relatives for the first time in 64 years tomorrow. Now, earlier today, they were supposed to be gathered here at 2 p.m. Korea time in Sokcho, but just, nearly noon, the venue was packed with family reunion attendees already excited to meet them. They registered themselves in, and their hearts were full of excitement, and their hands were full of bags and gifts for their relatives in the north, ranging from snacks to underwear to different kind of necessities that we here in South Korea take for granted. But another thing that every single one of them had in common was that they said that they had never dreamed of this day coming true.
Well, Conn-young, if I'm not mistaken, there were actually going to be 83 South Koreans traveling to Mount Kumgang for the reunions, right?
You're right, Daniel. Initially, the South Korean Red Cross had arranged a meeting for 83 South Koreans to go to Mount Kumgang and meet their relatives. However, one of them could not make it due to health reasons last minute. And this only highlights the fact that, time is running out for these elderlies because the most of them are in their 80s and 90s. In fact, 26 of the attendees this year are over 90 years old. And the South Korean Red Cross chief is fully aware of the fact. And what's also noteworthy during my interview with her was that she says she will meet with her North Korean counterpart in Mount Kumgang and discuss these very humanitarian issues.
So, Kon-young, what is their schedule from now on?
So earlier today at 2 p.m., they registered themselves in, and then they went ahead with receiving a brief meeting on the do's and don'ts while they're in North Korea meeting with their relatives. And they also went through medical checkups. There is, in fact, a group of medical personnel here to check upon their health by the minute. Also, they will a dozen of them will travel with the reunion attendees to North Korea, as well as an ambulance in case any of them suffer from health, health shortcomings.
And also, that will be the first stage of the 6-day event, correct?
That is correct. After spending the night here, it's roughly about 5 minutes past 6 p.m. right now in Korea. So they're just wrapping up with their dinner session. They're more or less done for the day. They'll go to sleep, and tomorrow at 8 a.m. in the morning, they will board a bus and depart for the cross-border office in Kumgang, which is about an hour-and-a-half drive from here. Now, and then from then, they'll go through the office, and at roughly 10 a.m., according to the Unification Ministry, 10 a.m., they will cross the border into North Korea and then in Mount Kumgang. They'll arrive in Mount Kumgang at about 1 p.m. Korea time, and the first meeting of the reunion will start at 3 p.m. Now, like you said, Daniel, this is the first round of the reunion event, which is divided into 2 stages. In the first 3 days, 82 seniors from South Korea will meet 180 relatives in North Korea. And then in the second stage, from Sunday to Tuesday, 88 North Koreans will meet with 361 of their family members. And of course, the reunions this time, as always, did not come without hiccups. And for these divided families, it will be bittersweet, to say the least, because, the chances of any of them meeting ever again is really slim, if not none.
Well, it could be the last. Let's hope for the best. Thank you so much, Kon-young. That was our very own Moon Conn-young, live from Sokcho on the eve of a historic inter-Korean family reunion.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with heroes and experts to help you understand the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best with Moon Conn-young and Daniel Che on Early Edition at 6.
Now shifting gears to the economy, Korean import prices rose by 2 points.
Despite the friendly atmosphere, North Korea will always be on the international chopping boards. And here in South Korea, fresh on the heels of a scathing United Nations report about the human rights situation over there in North Korea, the South Korean Parliamentary Committee in charge of Foreign Affairs met Wednesday to discuss pending bills over the matter. But as our Kim Young-gi reports, lawmakers had different ideas about how they should proceed.
Lawmakers from the ruling Missionary Party and the main opposition Democratic Party showed clear differences over pending North Korean human rights bills at Wednesday's Foreign Affairs and Unification Committee. The Missionary Party's floor leader, Choi Kyung-hwan, said passage should come sooner rather than later.
The North Korean human rights bill should be passed as soon as possible. The UN has already urged North Korea to stop violating people's rights and for China to stop the repatriation of North Korean refugees. We should be the ones at the forefront.
The two parties have each submitted 5 bills since 2005, calling for measures that would improve the lives of the North Korean people. The Saenuri Party's proposals have mainly called for documenting the human rights situation in North Korea, supporting human rights activities, and helping groups that aid North Korean defectors. The DP's proposals have focused more on supporting cooperation between the South and North and providing humanitarian aid. While Democratic Party lawmaker Chung Chang-nae welcomed the discussions on the bills, he said the timing was inappropriate.
Both parties should go ahead and talk about the pending bills, but legislating them may affect North Korea's attitude towards South Korea, especially at a time when we are going ahead with the family reunions and relations with North Korea are improving.
Political analysts say the opposition party's stance reflects concerns that a hardline approach to the North Korean human rights situation could anger Pyongyang and worsen relations. Although the parliamentary committee lawmakers did not agree on legislating the bills just yet, they did agree to proceed with fine-tuning them. The U.S. and Japan adopted legislation on the North Korean human rights situation in 2004 and 2006, respectively. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Some troubling news coming from Pyongyang. North Korea has detained yet another foreigner, this time an Australian missionary. 75-year-old John Short's wife told Reuters that he was arrested by Pyongyang's Public Security Bureau on Sunday. Short was reportedly questioned about handing out religious pamphlets printed in Korean. The incident comes days after a United Nations report headed by an Australian was released on North Korea's crimes against humanity. Australia, which does not have diplomatic relations with North Korea, is using its embassy in Seoul and the Swedish embassy in Pyongyang to look into the case. Pyongyang has been holding Korean-American missionary Kenneth Bae in custody for more than a year on charges he was trying to overthrow the North Korean regime. Back here in the nation, the housing market here in the nation is sputtering along, and the Land Ministry has some ideas about how to get it back on track and laid them out at the presidential office on Wednesday. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
During a policy briefing at the presidential office of Cheongwadae on Wednesday, the Ministry of Land, Maritime and Environment called for revitalizing the housing market by easing restrictions. The pitch included a number of measures. Regarding the reconstruction of houses, the Land Ministry said there is a need to scale back on some of the policies imposed back in 2006 that were put into place to quell housing speculation. That could include abolishing a policy that requires homeowners to pay back some of the profits gained from rising house prices after renovations. Limiting a household to buying just one house in some areas of the Seoul metropolitan area would also no longer apply. The ministry also wants to ease the eligibility for government-backed mortgage loans to include more home buyers. First-time buyers are currently only eligible for loans that have interest rates in the 1% range. But with the change, those who have not owned a house for 5 years would be eligible as well. The ministry aims to make public rental housing available to 90,000 households this year and to 500,000 households by the year 2017. The set of measures is being introduced in part to counter soaring housing rental prices that have risen since 2008. The goal is to ease the imbalance between supply and demand in Cheonse, a rental system unique to Korea that requires one large lump sum deposit. The task of boosting the nation's faltering housing market has been a major issue for economic policymakers, as more than half of Korean households' assets are in real estate. And because of that, many fear that the ailing housing market could have a negative impact on the nation's consumption, which makes up a majority of the nation's gross domestic product. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
The families of the victims who died in a horrifying building collapse in Korea's southeastern city of Gyeongju this week have come to a compensation agreement with the builder of the resort. The agreement between Korean Group and the families of 8 dead students came Wednesday at a funeral hall in Ulsan. Some 560 freshmen from the Busan University of Foreign Studies were taking part in an orientation event in an auditorium at the Mauna Ocean Resort in Gyeongju, when the ceiling collapsed Monday night. A total of 10 people died and 115 others were injured. Although authorities say heavy snowfall may have contributed to the collapse, investigators are looking into the possibility that poor construction also played a role. Violence returned to Ukraine Tuesday, where at least 25 people have been killed in the worst outbreak of violence since demonstrations erupted against President Viktor Yanukovych. Ukrainian police charged protesters at the capital's Independence Square using rubber bullets, smoke and stun grenades on protesters and clashed with civilians on the barricades surrounding the central Kiev square. Tuesday's clashes began after the demonstrators attempted to march on parliament demanding constitutional reform. Shifting gears a little bit, Arirang TV, Korea's only global broadcasting network, will be available across the U.S. via leading broadcast service provider DirecTV starting Thursday. The move gives Arirang a potential audience of 11 million, while viewers will gain a window into Korean culture. Our Oh Jin-ju has the details.
Addan TV, which currently reaches more than 112 million households across the globe, will soon be available to a new audience of viewers in the United States. Starting Thursday, the Korean broadcaster will become the first and only Asian channel added to the public interest programming lineup of U.S.-based broadcast satellite service provider DirecTV. Addan TV will be available on DirecTV channel 2095 across the U.S. to more than half of the channel's 20 million subscribers. While other Asian channels are included in DirecTV's international packages, which requires an extra subscription fee, Addan TV is part of the English packages that reaches the mainstream U.S. audience. Addan TV will be providing programs that target the growing Asian American market to further promote Korea and Korean culture in the U.S., ranging from up-to-date news and documentaries to round-the-clock entertainment. To commemorate the launch of the service on Thursday, President Park Geun-hye will be delivering an on-air congratulatory message in which she is expected to express her hope that Arirang TV becomes a bridge between Korea and the U.S., strengthening their friendship and trust. DirecTV is one of the world's leading providers of digital television entertainment services and has a customer base of 20 million in the U.S. and more than 17 million in Latin America through its 295 channels. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News.
And now to the Winter Olympic Games. It was an exciting evening last night, with Team Korea winning another gold medal. And the excitement is already building for figure skater Kim Yeon-a's debut in Sochi. For this and more, we have Connie Lee from the Sports Center. Connie, let's start with yesterday's action. We were watching the games last night here at Arirang Tower and rejoiced together when our Korean women's speed skaters won medals once again.
Yeah, Daniel, I mean, you called it. You called it last night that they'll win the gold, and you're right. The Korean women's speed skaters took home a well-deserved gold last night in the 3,000-meter relay. Now, it was a very tight race up until the very end. In the final curve, Korea's 17-year-old SOCHI in second sped past China to cross the finish line. Now, this exciting finish kept viewers on the edge of their seats as cheers and tears of joy broke out amongst the Korean athletes and coaches. You know, it's a very sweet victory here in Sochi, especially after the 2010 Winter Olympics, when the Korean women finished a relay first, only to be disqualified in the end for improper contact. But this year, it was unquestionable that the Korean team won. So congrats to Kim Ha-rang, Park Seung-hee, Cho Ha-ri, and Shim Seok-ki and Kumgang for their gold medal. And staying in the ice rink, the Netherlands seems unstoppable. How do they do it? Their dominance in speed skating continued last night, this time in the men's 10,000-meter race. It's becoming a familiar sight, seeing all that orange on the podium. Now, this is the fourth time at this year's Olympics that the Dutch team has won gold, silver and bronze in a speed skating event. On Tuesday in the 10,000-meter, Jorrit Bergsma took the gold with a new Olympic record of 12 points, 44.45 seconds. The silver and bronze went to his teammates Sven Kramer and Bob DeLong. But in fourth place, we do have to give a shout out to Korea's own Lee Seung-hoon. Now, the 25-year-old fell short, more than 27 seconds behind the Dutch leader, as fatigue seemed to hit him in the 25-lap race. Now, in the 2010 Olympic Games, Lee won the gold and set an Olympic record then. But despite the high expectations, he did not win a medal this year. Now let's get off the ice for a bit and go to the slopes. At the first ski halfpipe event ever at an Olympic Games this year at Sochi, we had American David Wise take home the gold medal. You're looking at a piece of history here of 23-year-old Wise doing his thing on Tuesday. He scored 92 points on his first run. Look at that. Now, halfpipe skiing, as you can see here, is a sport that includes performing different tricks while going down the pipe. Now, it's not one of the safest sports, as you can imagine, so athletes are required to wear their helmets. As for the new Olympic champ, Wise says he's happy with his medal as a skier, but went on to say that being a father and husband are more important. How nice. And tonight is the night that a lot of fans are waiting for, and they'll finally get this chance to see Kim Yeon-ah, or the Ice Queen, perform in Sochi. Now, the figure skating ladies' short program is later today at midnight Korea time, with Kim Yeon-ah being the 17th out of 30 contenders. Now, this defending Olympic champion at 23 years old has a lot of expectations sitting on her shoulders this year, especially among the Korean fans. Now, this is apparently her last Olympic run, and she'll be performing to send in the clowns. All eyes are on Yeon-ah, especially as for the first time, she'll be facing her newest rival. Here you can see 15-year-old Russian Yulia Lipnitskaya. Now, this young rising star is supposed to be Kim Yeon-ah's toughest competition this year. Lipnitskaya has already wowed the crowds at Sochi this year, winning gold in the figure skating team event last week. She's also a figure skating winner in the European Championships. So will Kim Yeon-ah defend her gold this year, or will it be won by a new young star? We'll have to wait and see. Now let's go to the medal rankings for Sochi on this Wednesday evening. Korea is up to 15th place, up 2 spots after last night's gold medal. Korea now has a total of 4 Olympic medals, but Germany stays on top with 8 gold medals. The number 2 spot has been changing by the day, and at this time right now, it's Norway claiming that spot, and they have 7 gold medals. Netherlands is at number 3, but with the most number of Olympic medals with 20. Same goes for the United States. Russia is still in the top 5 with 5 gold medals, and that rounds out the top 5. That's all for the medal rankings. Now let's take a look at the upcoming schedule at Sochi. That's all I have for right now. I'll be back at 8 with more updates on the Olympic Games. Back to you, Daniel.
Well, thank you so much for that, Connie. Keep those Sochi Olympic updates coming. And with just 5 days remaining until the curtain comes down on the Sochi Winter Games, more and more attention is being drawn to the next Winter Games in the Korean resort town of PYONGCHANG. For fans wanting to learn more about the next host city, there is a special place at Olympic Park to get a preview. Our Olympics correspondent Song Ji-sun follows us this report from Sochi.
The spirit of the Olympics is alive and well in Sochi, but just a few minutes after entering Olympic Park, you can also get a sense of what the 2018 Winter Games will be like. The PyeOngCHANG House is just before the main competition venues at the Olympic Park. Athletes and sports fans can get a preview of what the Winter Olympics will look like at Korea's Alpine City less than 4 years from now. From learning about Pyeongchang's location on the Korean peninsula and experiencing Korean medicine to watching cultural performances every day, visitors can get a better idea of the host city and the nation of the Pyeongchang Winter Olympic Games. The venue is especially popular among Russians who are curious about the city that will take the reins in 4 years.
I think that it will be good Olympic Games and maybe better than now. I hope that I will be in these Olympic Games in PYEONGCHANG.
And it's not too early to think about Pyeongchang. Athletes who have already wrapped up their games at SOCHI are now setting their sights on Pyeongchang, and so are their families.
We're parents of an athlete at these games, and I'm very, very impressed. I mean, obviously, they're quite ready for the Olympics. There's no question about that.
After hitting the 100,000 visitor mark on Saturday, Pyeongchang House is rising as a must-see spot among Olympic fans.
Over 15,000 visitors drop by at the Pyeongchang House a day, meaning 1 out of 5 people in Olympic Park drop by. They get surprisingly interested after viewing the exhibition. And more than 500 Russians have already requested that they'd love to volunteer at the 2018 Pyeongchang Games.
Visitor number 201,800 to the Pyeongchang House, or 2018 with 2 zeros on the end, will win a free flight to and from the Games if the winner wants to volunteer at the 2018 Games. 송지선, Arirang News, Sochi.
And that's the end of our newscast. And according to our Michelle Park, there will be heavy snow in Mount Kumgang, but I'm sure that will not dampen the spirits of those taking part in the family reunion event. This has been Daniel Che. Have a great rest of the evening.